How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 1.
Greetings, conversationalists. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here from another hotel room as I travel for more conferences. The phone number 877-973-7425 should you wish to be on the program. As always, text Eric, E-R-I-C-K, to 33777. Get the live stream, the show notes, the podcast, everything you need. Let's begin with the war briefing, shall we? I feel like we need to start doing this on a regular basis. I was going to start with other stuff, and I was like, you know what? I should probably just start with where we are with the war situation. And the most significant point I can make to you is that the B-52 has now flown multiple missions over Iran. We've been flying the B-52 since the 1950s. We've upgraded them from propellers to jet engines over time, but essentially they are the same plane we've been flying since the pre-Vietnam War era, and they continue to expand. The Iranians have been making a very big deal of the fact that the B-52 it may fly at about 55,000 feet, but it moves very slow and it has very little defensive mechanisms to stop it from being blown out of the sky. Now, the B-52 does fly high enough. It can fly over neutral or allied territory and launch cruise missiles into enemy territory, but that's not what happened here. The B-52 flew over Iran. The point being that despite Iran saying that the B-52 could easily be shot down, it was not shot down, and it was not shot down because we have eradicated Iran's capabilities to be able to detect and respond. That essentially shows us that we have a situation where the air power of the United States has so thoroughly dominated the situation in Iran that we've taken complete control of their airspace. Now, they told us this wasn't going to happen, and that's one of the important points here that you've got to focus on, is that they told us, the Iranians did, the talking heads did, the chattering class did, that what we were doing was not possible, and yet it was. We continue to see people around the world on television, in print, on the internet, and elsewhere just flat out failing to understand the superiority of the United States military. This is the chairman, if I can pull it up, I'm having some technical difficulties here. This is the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff talking about the situation in his briefing.
Central Command is making steady progress. Iran's theater ballistic missile shots fired are down 86% from the first day of fighting, with a 23% decrease just in the last 24 hours. And their one-way attack drone shots are down 73% from the opening days. This progress has allowed CENTCOM to establish localized air superiority across the southern flank of the Iranian coast and penetrate their defenses with overwhelming precision and firepower. We will now begin to expand inland, striking progressively deeper into Iranian territory and creating additional freedom of maneuver for U.S. forces.
Now, one of the things that we have been doing for the past year, and I told you guys it was going to come to this, and by the way, I have very limited special insight from conversations I've had, just so you know. A lot of it is just I'm a literate person and know stuff about the Middle East since I grew up over there. But we have allowed the Israelis to bomb the snot out of the border between Iraq and Iran. After the Iran-Iraq War, the Kurdish north in Iraq is deeply hostile to Saddam Hussein at the time and also to the Iranian regime, and the Iranians fortified their northwest border to keep the Kurds out. They have a lot of military operations in the northwest in case the Kurds ever spilled over into Iran. We've been bombing those positions, as have the Israelis. We've dropped a massive amount of ordnance to weaken those Iranian positions, and now we've been arming the Kurds for the last year. And the Kurds, I'm here to tell you, are not the only people we have been arming in and around Iran to go into Iran. Don't miss that point. It's a very important point. It's not just the Kurds we've been targeting for weaponizing, but allowing the Kurds to move into Iran begins a ground campaign without American boots on the ground. Very significant maneuvering by the Americans and the Israelis to soften the ground. This is Pete Hegseth, Secretary of Defense, who spoke this morning as well, giving a briefing update.
To our steadfast partner, Israel, your mission is being executed with unmatched skill and iron determination. Fighting shoulder to shoulder with such a capable ally is a true force multiplier and a breath of fresh air. We salute your courage and your contribution.
Yes, a very big deal to be this engaged with Israel. Some more from the Secretary of Defense. Yeah, if I can get these things to play the Wi-Fi.
Sure, Iran will still be able to shoot some missiles and still be able to launch one-way attack drones at civilian targets. And their proxies will attempt to attack our embassies, bases, and soft targets. They are terrorists, after all, and they need to target civilians because they can't fight toe-to-toe. But we will find them, and we will kill them. This is what the fake news misses. We've taken control of Iran's airspace and waterways without boots on the ground. We control their fate.
Not only that, but this is a relevant point. This is the first American naval effort to use a torpedo to sink an enemy ship since World War II, and we have done that in the Persian Gulf to an Iranian destroyer.
The Iranian Air Force is no more. Built for 1996, destroyed in 2026. The Iranian Navy rests at the bottom of the Persian Gulf. Combat ineffective, decimated, destroyed, defeated, pick your adjective. In fact, last night, we sunk their prize ship, the Soleimani. Looks like POTUS got him twice. Their Navy, not a factor. Pick your adjective, it is no more. In fact, yesterday, in the Indian Ocean, and we'll play it on the screen there, an American submarine sunk an Iranian warship that thought it was safe in international waters. Instead, it was sunk by a torpedo. Quiet death. The first sinking of an enemy ship by a torpedo since World War II. Like in that war, back when we were still the War Department, we are fighting to win. Also, yesterday, the leader of the unit who attempted to assassinate President Trump has been hunted down and killed. Iran tried to kill President Trump, and President Trump got the last laugh. Now, this is not a mission accomplished situation. This is simply a reality check. The combination of U.S. and Israeli intelligence and combat power will control Iran, and will control it soon.
We're doing an incredible job with our military assets. And again, it's lasting longer than the rapid operation in Venezuela. Polling is now showing that something upwards of 70% of Americans would support a campaign that lasts about a month or less. We may be able to get there. A little more from the Secretary of Defense here on the operation.
Starting last night and to be completed in a few days, in under a week, the two most powerful air forces in the world will have complete control of Iranian skies, uncontested airspace. I hope all the folks watching understand what uncontested airspace and complete control means. It means we will fly all day, all night, day and night, finding, fixing, and finishing the missiles and defense industrial base of the Iranian military, finding and fixing their leaders and their military leaders, flying over Tehran, flying over Iran, flying over their capital, flying over the IRGC, Iranian leaders looking up and seeing only U.S. and Israeli air power every minute of every day until we decide it's over.
Now, you should know overnight there is Iranian chatter that they would like a ceasefire. I don't know that we are going to give them the ceasefire yet, in large part because of the people they have put in charge and wish to continue to be in charge. I don't know that that's going to happen. A little more from the Secretary of Defense here on how we can sustain this effort.
President Trump said more and larger waves are coming. We are just getting started. We are accelerating, not decelerating. Iran's capabilities are evaporating by the hour, while American strength grows fiercer, smarter, and utterly dominant. More bombers and more fighters are arriving just today. And now, with complete control of the skies, we will be using 500-pound, 1,000-pound, and 2,000-pound GPS and laser-guided precision gravity bombs, of which we have a nearly unlimited stockpile. We used more exquisite standoff munitions at the start, but no longer need to. Our stockpiles of those, as well as Patriots, remains extremely strong. The enemy can no longer shoot the volume of missiles they once did, not even close. And the chairman will lay out some of those percentages. So our air defenses and that of our allies have plenty of runway. We can sustain this fight easily for as long as we need to.
And, you know, there's been some peddling misinformation out there about the American stockpile. We are able to replenish that stockpile. We have enough to be able to wage this campaign. We've got people working 24/7 to rebuild the stockpile. It's simply not really the concern that members of the media are trying to make it out to be. I will say what I said yesterday, that there's not an effort to update the talking points. The people who are arguing about this stuff have been using the same talking points since the Iraq War in the early 2000s. They haven't been able to update. It's all about munition supplies. It's all about forever wars. It's all about getting bogged down. It's all about spreading a regional war. Iran spread the war regionally, and all of the Arab neighbors of Iran are now on the side of Israel, which is saying something significant about how much they hate Iran, which, if you're a longtime listener of this program, I've told you would happen, with the exception of Qatar. Qatar is the only surprising one in this situation. Qatar siding with Israel on this, despite still not having regular negotiations with Israel, is significant. And the American press corps has largely danced around this. Last night, there was a briefing from the commander in charge of the operation at CENTCOM, who noted that we have taken an Iranian drone, we have made it more significant here, more powerful, kept to the price point to around $30,000 a drone, and we're launching them at the Iranians. We're using Iranian technology upgraded and relaunched at Iran quite successfully. Now, our air campaign is struggling to shoot down the Iranian drones. They move slower than missiles, and they fly beneath radar. They're harder to detect. The Ukrainians have started advising the war effort, understanding that by wiping out Iran, we're wiping out Russia's ability to provide provided drones for the theater. So it's a win-win all around. We're helping Ukraine. We're helping Taiwan by undermining China's energy issues. We're helping our Middle East partners. We're helping Israel. We're helping ourselves stamp out Iran. This is a worthwhile campaign. The question is, what comes next? And it is a valid question that's starting to be asked. And it sounds like the president and the Israelis do have plans, having armed numbers of people inside Iran, not just the Kurds, to take their country back. The president is signaling that it's not necessary for the Iranian people to take their country back, but he's hoping they will. We're softening up positions. Israel in particular right now, while we're focused on the military aspects of Iran, Israel is focused on the police aspects of Iran to destabilize enough of the regime so that people can get back into the streets. We're hoping that happens in the next week or so. But in the meantime, it's full steam ahead. The Iranians cannot take down our B-52s, and that is your significant takeaway today, is that the fact that the B-52s can fly over Iran right now unimpeded means we have taken out their capacity to wage an air campaign against us. Greetings, conversationalists. It is Eric Erickson here. Yep, you can call in 877-973-7425. I want to just talk to you about something real quick. You are beginning to hear, and will hear a lot in the next few days, about the American capacity to make war. The Secretary of Defense this morning and the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff said that we are moving from precision-guided missiles to gravity bombs in our campaign in Iran. Immediately, a bunch of left-wing academics spun up into action along with Democratic pundits, claiming this means we have depleted our stockpile of precision-guided munitions, and this is a dangerous thing. The president has wiped out our supplies. I began the program today telling you that the B-52 is now able to fly over Iran unimpeded, which it could not do if Iran's air defenses were operational. The fact that Iran's air defenses are not operational means we now get to operate directly in theater of operations, which means we can use gravity bombs because planes can fly over and drop them off, as opposed to before we had to worry about surface-to-air missiles, detections, and Iranian planes as well. We don't have to worry about any of that stuff now. That's why we're using the gravity bombs. It has nothing to do with the fact that we've wiped out our arsenal. In fact, this is becoming a talking point of the people who have long opposed Iran. It's been so obvious that they hate our operation to begin with. They don't like the fact that we are doing what we're doing, and now they're trying to scare everyone and claim, oh my gosh, we've wiped out our ability to wage war because we've wiped out our ability to have precision-guided munitions. It's nonsense. All we're doing now is we're actually able to fly planes directly over Iran and drop bombs off. We don't have to send cruise missiles anymore. We can send pilots and planes because we've wiped out Iran's capacity to blow us out of the sky. This is actually major progress. The ridiculousness of these people. In any event, let me tell you something else that's ridiculous out there is progressives over time have been buying stock. True story, not making this up. They've been buying stock in banks, and then they've been using their ownership in the banks as shareholders to force the banks to change policies, in particular to force banks to debank conservatives and conservative operations. My friends at Old Glory Bank have been fighting for banking freedom since day one. It was one of the reasons they started. Big banks are claiming it was the regulators who made them debank people. It's not true. It was the heads of the big banks making the choices on behalf, oftentimes, of progressive shareholders. They want to pick the winners and losers of the financial system, and they definitely want to target conservatives. So you should trust the bank that stands with freedom-loving Americans. That's one of the reasons I bank with Old Glory Bank. You can too. oldglorybank.com/Eric. Old Glory Bank stands with you. It stands with your freedom to bank. It stands against the progressive shareholders of America pressuring banks to shut you down. oldglorybank.com/Eric. oldglorybank.com/ERICK. Member FDIC. Equal housing lender. Terms and conditions apply. Hello and welcome. It is Eric Erickson here across the United States. The phone number is 877-973-7425. If you want to be on the program, I guess it would help if I actually got into the call screening program, wouldn't it? Let's see here. All right. Well, that was the Bible program. Okay, we got to talk about Texas. I'm a little bit upset this morning. My friend Chip Roy, he's a real good friend, did not do well in the Attorney General race in Texas, and the Senate race in Texas on the Republican side. John Cornyn and Ken Paxton are going to get into this race, and what I find notable is that the Paxson people believed they were going to run ahead of Cornyn. In fact, I did too. I expected Paxson to get 40%. Cornyn got over Paxson. He got 43%. When you combine Wes Hunt and John Cornyn's numbers together, they dominated Ken Paxson, and that may be enough to get Donald Trump into the race for Cornyn. There's a lot of hope that Donald Trump gets in the race for Cornyn, in large part because it's a 3-month runoff now. Paxson is perceived as much weaker. The Democrats decided not to go with Jasmine Crockett. They went with James Tallarico, and I actually think the Democrats have fallen into a trap with Tallarico. Hear me out here. A lot of my friends on the right were playing up Jasmine Crockett because they thought she would be weaker in the general election than James Tallarico, and in fact, that's what the polling showed. I actually think Tallarico is weaker in a general election than Jasmine Crockett, in large part because Crockett has a way to be able to moderate her image while still being anti-Trump, and Tallarico doesn't. And Jasmine Crockett does not alienate Christians the way Tallarico does. That includes particularly non-white Christians. Tallarico did much better than Crockett with Democratic Hispanic voters in Texas. And one of the dirty little secrets in Texas is that the racial animus between black and Hispanic voters in Texas is significant. People don't like to talk about it, but if you want to see real racism in Texas, you go down to South Texas and engage between black and Hispanic voters in Texas, and you'll find real racism there in ways that don't exist in many other parts of the country. There's real racial animus there, and in particular, within the Democratic Party, the black voters and Hispanic voters within the Democratic Party are not fully compatible with each other because they hate each other the most. When you have embraced intersectional racial politics and identity politics the way these people have, they don't like to coexist together. So the Democratic Hispanic voters, of course, voted for Tallarico. What I find most notable, however, is Tallarico has a long record of being very, very progressive on theological issues that are alienating to a great many more people than evangelical Republicans.
But I say all this in terms of, in context of abortion, because before God comes over Mary and we have the incarnation, God asks for Mary's consent, which is remarkable. I mean, go back and read this in Luke. I mean, the angel comes down and asks Mary if this is something she wants to do. And she says, if it is God's will, let it be done. Let it be. Let it happen. So to me, that is an affirmation in one of our most central stories that creation has to be done with consent. You cannot force someone.
Yeah. Wi-Fi issue there. Creation has to be done with consent. You have that? He uses the Annunciation, where the angel appears to Mary and tells her that she will give birth to the Son of God, as a justification for abortion. Now, what you need to know is that theologically, in mainstream, not mainline, but mainstream Christianity, around the world, 2 billion people, the Annunciation is actually used as an example of why Christians should oppose abortion. Why? Because according to the Annunciation, theologically, life begins at conception. The moment Christ is conceived in the womb by Mary and the Holy Spirit, he could be aborted. Therefore, life begins at conception, and conservative, well, I shouldn't say conservatives, Christians, generally Orthodox Bible-believing Christians, that's why they have long opposed abortion. Now, it was actually mainline Christianity that has never been fundamentally pro-life. And, you know, even Billy Graham back in the 1970s it seemed to be pro-abortion. It was the Catholic Church that actually convinced evangelical Christians in the United States that they had to be pro-life, because otherwise it meant they were saying that Jesus could be aborted in the womb. What you actually find when you read the story of the Annunciation is that God did not ask for Mary's consent. He went knowing Mary was of a character to agree. He never asked for consent. That's something that James Tallarico doesn't bring out in his. In fact, he completely misrepresents it. There was no issue of consent. What's funny is that for a very long time, a lot of people have left and said, oh, that means God raped Mary. And now suddenly it is Tallarico say, oh, no, he didn't rape. He asked for consent. He didn't ask for consent. He didn't rape her either. He knew that Mary had a pure heart and would agree. But it's not just the issue of abortion that Tallarico has embraced. James Tallarico has often gone out on a limb with trans issues, claiming that the trans community needs abortion as well. That's actually a quote from Tallarico, that the trans community needs abortion as well. That's how far left this guy is on these things. And it's not just that. He's gone out of his way as well to claim that Jesus was a feminist, and that Jesus is non-binary. That's actually probably one of my favorites out there, is that Jesus is non-binary. And the other one that is going to get, a lot of play in Texas is his position on the border and immigration in Texas. James Tallarico, who lives in Texas, who's seen illegal immigration overwhelm the border firsthand, is actually a big fan of open borders immigration, claiming that because Christ welcomed the poor and the like, that Christians should too, and we should be welcoming the illegal immigrants coming across the border. It's just wild how progressive his positions are. His positions are out of line with black voters and Hispanic voters and non-progressive white voters across the board. You can't make this stuff up with Tallarico. He really is that far left on these issues. And the white progressives in Texas didn't want a black woman running in the general election, so they pushed her aside in favor of Tallarico. Now, Tallarico potentially
our southern border should be like our front porch. There should be a giant welcome mat out front.
Our border should be like our front porch, a giant welcome mat out front. Good luck running in Texas on those issues. This is why I actually think Jasmine Crockett would have been a stronger general election candidate than Tallarico, because she's not alienating to as many people as Tallarico is. He really is a beta. We went from abortion Barbie with Wendy Davis to abortion Ken doll. He's just as neutered as Ken doll. And he wants to be the progressive standard bearer for abortion and trans rights and an open border. Good luck running in Texas. Now, on the Republican side, if the Republicans do nominate Ken Paxton, frankly, they're asking to lose. And I want to go on record now, and I've said this repeatedly. The problem with Ken Paxton as the Republican nominee is not that Ken Paxton's going to lose to James Tallarico. The problem with Ken Paxton in Texas is that the amount of money that must be spent to ensure Ken Paxton wins is money that will be taken away from Georgia and North Carolina and Maine and Michigan and Ohio and other states that the Republicans need to win. The Republicans actually have an opportunity to gain seats in the Senate through Georgia by beating Jon Ossoff. Although at this point, I think Mike Collins is so scandal-plagued and ethics challenged and problems with his campaign manager and the like that Mike Collins, he's dominating the Republican field right now, but Republicans in Georgia are known for doing the Herschel Walker route, and they could be doing that with Mike Collins if he doesn't get this ethics issue fixed in his chief of staff / campaign manager issue fixed. Mike Collins is, I think Mike Collins makes the most sense. Derek Dooley has not caught on fire. Buddy Carter actually knows how to win a swing district in Georgia. Mike Collins, on paper, is a very strong candidate, but so was Herschel Walker. It's just the baggage. And if there's one thing that Jon Ossoff knows how to win on, it's the ethical challenges of a Republican candidate, which are there. So the Republicans in Georgia could be committing suicide for the party, and you go with Paxton in Texas. Again, Paxton can beat Tallarico. You're just going to have to spend way more money to get him across the finish line than John Cornyn. Cornyn's a pretty reliable vote on virtually everything, other than he was bad on the gun issue, and that's what's got him into this mess. And then from there, you've got all the money that's going to have to be spent. So in North Carolina, Roy Cooper is going to be the Democratic nominee. He is the governor who got elected twice statewide in North Carolina against Donald Trump's handpicked chairman of the GOP, Michael Whatley, who's gone back to North Carolina. That's going to be a dogfight of a race. It's going to be a very, very, very difficult race in North Carolina. Whatley is not as good on the campaign trail as he needs to be. He's got time to get up to speed. And frankly, the crime issue and the Ukrainian woman who was killed on the subway or on the train here in Charlotte gives an opening for the Republicans because that criminal was out of prison thanks to Roy Cooper's policies. In Georgia, it's going to be difficult to go after Ossoff. You need to save all your money. That means Cornyn is a better bet in Texas. But Tallarico, again, is so far left. It's a problem. Dan Crenshaw, I should note, also lost his primary last night. He's the first incumbent to lose a primary this year. He's probably not going to be the last incumbent this year to lose a primary. He was redistricted out of the core of his district. It didn't turn out well for him last night. He was running against a guy. Crenshaw, listen, I like Dan Crenshaw, okay. But, my wife, I knew Dan Crenshaw had a problem because my wife has been asking about him because my wife watches some of these podcasts with some of the military guys and he's been on those. And I'm like, this is not how you need to be running for reelection. You need to be knocking on doors in your congressional district instead of doing these defensive podcasts where you're trying to defend your record with people in your district aren't even watching. It's very, very weird. Not great campaign. And the same, I got to tell you, John Cornyn, I've had you on my program. I'm just going to give you some frank advice. You need a shakeup of your campaign team. You've got 3 months. Your campaign team is not playing its A game. You did better than Paxson. You should not look at that and think it's success. You got to shake up your campaign team. You need a stronger comm shop. You need to be on the attack more, and you need to be knocking on doors across Texas. You are playing it like an old man, and you're going to lose the runoff if you don't engage harder. You're making the same mistake Dan Crenshaw made in his primary, where Crenshaw spent, just looking at it from my perspective, way more time doing podcasts defending himself that no one in his district cared about. You got to be boots on the ground, knocking on doors across Texas, John Cornyn. You got to do old school John Cornyn campaigns, not this lazy campaigning you've been doing if you want to beat Ken Paxton. And having the president's support actually does matter, given the fact that you overperformed and surprised everyone, and the donor class of the GOP understands what's at stake nationwide. You got an opportunity to make a persuasive case to the president of the United States that he needs to come in on your side. If Cornyn is the nominee, Tallarico is just absolutely blown out of the water. The only reason Tallarico would have a shot is if Paxton's the Republican nominee, because he's damaged goods. The messy divorce with his wife, the affair with the lobbyists, the impeachment, the FBI investigation, all of his staff in his office turning on him and reporting him to the FBI. He's damaged goods, and he and some of these people in Texas who they just hate John Cornyn, they don't care about the evidence. They don't care about the issues. They claim it's old news. It's old news. Here's what I learned in the Herschel Walker race in Georgia. I knew about the allegations against Herschel Walker, and I raised the Herschel Walker allegations repeatedly in the primary and got beat up by a lot of people that I was just disloyal. I was never Trump. I wasn't supporting him because I hadn't supported Donald Trump. And I'm like, guys, you don't understand. He held a gun to his ex-wife's head. And it doesn't matter that she's come out and said, by God, she's not going to be on the campaign trail. She got into the general election. His son turned against him. The ex-wife didn't come out and campaign for him. All of the allegations came up. The old interview with him talking about having been abusive to his wife came up. Those were the attack ads again and again and again. And it turned out what was old news for Republican hands in Georgia was not old news for voters who only pay attention in the general election. And the same thing's going to happen with Ken Paxton. You think it's old news. You think it's been litigated. But most voters don't pay attention until the general election. They will pay attention to the attack ads if Paxton is the nominee. He will be vilified, and watch independent voters jump to Tallarico. And again, it's not that Paxton's going to lose. It's that you're going to spend so much money getting him across the finish line, you're going to sacrifice other races. Republicans spent so much money getting Herschel Walker into a runoff, and he was on the ballot with every other Republican. Every other Republican in the state of Georgia won. He went into a runoff, and there were no other Republicans turning back out to help him, and he was destroyed. That's the danger with Paxton. It is Herschel Walker 2.0, and the only people who don't believe it are Ken Paxton's most diehard supporters. This hour of the program brought to you by Van Allen Golf, ALLEN, vanallengolf.com. You can also text the word golf to 33777. Check out the Van Allen Golf lineup. They're developing new putters. They've got phenomenal putting technology. The milling, the piecing together of this putter is incredible. I've got the ceramic shaft. I actually use it. It really is fantastic. It's taken me from a 5-putt to 3-putt. I'm working on my golf game, y'all. Don't ask me my handicap. VanAllenGolf.com. Text golf to 33777. We still have a ton that we have to talk about today. But before I get to any of that, I just got to give you a sense of the disinformation campaign that some people who they just really want to hate everything about what Donald Trump does. And they're buying into this. An Iraqi or Iranian disinformation campaign on Twitter put up a picture of the explosion of a helicopter and an F-14. Remember, the Iranians fly our old military equipment, so they fly F-14s, and said, it was clearly a painting. And the Iranian Defense Ministry put it up and said, look, we painted pictures on the ground and they blew them up. They're wasting their missiles. Except they were real. They had thermal signatures. There were shadow. These were real. The Americans don't dispute it. But it was remarkable to see a bunch of Twitter accounts decide that they were going to put up the Iranian talking points as if the Iranians were telling the truth, that we're actually blowing up imaginary things in Iran. And what I also found notable is some of the supposedly America First accounts of people who celebrate the president all the time were rushing to also do this. Meanwhile, the media is claiming there's some massive division among MAGA and the president on this, but new polling has come out. Over 80% of the president's base, the self-described MAGA base, supports this campaign, as they should. It's the right thing to do. We don't want it to last a long time, but blowing up the mullahs is good. By the way, the new Ayatollah already dead. We'll get into that when we come back. First, I got to tell you about the Eden Pure Thunderstorm. You can get 3 of them and save $200 at EdenPureDeals.com. EdenPureDeals.com. The discount code is ERIC3. They got a money-back guarantee. If they do not eliminate odors, they'll give you your money back. All the details are at EdenPureDeals.com. The discount code is ERIC3, ERICK, the number 3. The Eden Pure Thunderstorm is an air purifier. It's got 3 technologies in it. The first is it's a filterless air purifier. So it gets rid of pollen, dust. It gets rid of pet dander, gets rid of mold particles floating in the air. The second technology is plasma, and it kills 99.9% of bacteria and viruses that flow through the machine. The third technology is ozone generation. Ozone is like odor bleach, and it wipes out odors. In fact, I use my Eden Pure Thunderstorm for odor control, not for air purification. You can too, and if it doesn't wipe out those odors, it's got a money-back guarantee. EdenPureDeals.com. The discount code ERIC3, ERICK3 at EdenPureDeals.com.